The sun burned like fire over the desert of Sudan. The air shimmered with heat, and the sand looked like gold under a cruel sky. In the middle of that empty place, a man was on his knees. His name was Daniel, a humble Christian who loved Jesus more than his own life. Around him stood men with hard faces and cold eyes. They held ropes, sticks, and anger in their hands. The leader, a tall man wearing black cloth, shouted, "Renounce your faith or die." Daniel's hands were tied behind his back. His knees pressed deep into the hot sand. Sweat ran down his face, but his heart was calm like still water. He whispered softly, "Jesus, you are my life. Even if I die for you." The wind moved suddenly, slow and heavy, as if heaven itself was watching. The men pulled the rope tighter around his neck. The sound of its sliding was sharp and frightening. The crowd laughed, thinking it was the end. But Daniel lifted his eyes toward the sky. He didn't see the men anymore. He saw light. It started small, like a soft glow behind the clouds. Then it grew brighter, stronger, until even the men stepped back in fear. The air changed. The wind grew cool. The desert that had been burning now felt gentle. Daniel's lips moved again. "Jesus, help me." Just then, something unseen broke through the moment. The rope that was around his neck, the rope meant to end his life, snapped. The sound of the breaking rope echoed across the desert like thunder. The men froze. One of them dropped his stick. Another shouted, "It's impossible." Daniel fell forward, coughing, but alive. His eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of wonder. He felt hands he could not see holding him up. A voice, soft, full of love, whispered in his spirit, "I am with you, my son." The sky, once hot and cruel, was now covered with clouds shaped like wings. The men who came to kill him trembled. Some ran, some fell to their knees, shaking. One of them cried out, "Who is this God that breaks ropes?" Daniel slowly stood up. The marks of the rope were still on his neck, red and painful, but his heart was full of light. He looked around at the frightened faces and said, with a trembling voice, "His name is Jesus, the one who saves." And as his words echoed in that silent desert, even the wind seemed to whisper his name. The desert went quiet after the rope broke. The sound of the snapping rope still echoed in the heads of those who had seen it. The men who came to kill Daniel stood frozen. Some ran into the dunes, shouting that they had seen a ghost. Others fell to the ground, afraid to move. Only one man didn't run. His name was Amir. He was the youngest of the group, his eyes wide and shaking. He had held one end of the rope. His hands were still trembling, and his heart beat like a drum inside his chest. He whispered to himself, that rope was thick, no man could break it. How did it snap? Daniel was standing now, weak but alive. His voice was calm. "You saw it, Amir." "It wasn't me. Jesus broke it." Amir said nothing. He only stared. Daniel untied the last knot on his wrists and began to walk away slowly. The men did not stop him. Even their leader, the man in black, stood speechless, his lips moving but no words coming out. The desert wind began to rise again, soft but strange, like it carried whispers. Amir heard something faint, a voice, deep and gentle. "Follow the light." He turned quickly, looking around, but saw nothing. Only Daniel walking away, his shadow long against the sand. That night, the sky over Sudan was filled with stars brighter than ever before. The air was cool and silent. Amir could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Daniel kneeling. He saw the rope. He heard the snap. He remembered Daniel's words. "His name is Jesus, the one who saves." Something began to stir in his heart, something he had never felt before. Fear and curiosity mixed together like fire and water. So Amir did something no one expected. He packed his small bag, took a little water, and began to walk, following Daniel's footprints through the desert. Hours passed. The moonlight showed him the trail. His feet burned, his throat went dry, but something kept pushing him forward, a voice that said, "Go." At dawn, he found Daniel sitting under a lone tree near a small stream, a miracle in the middle of the desert. Daniel's eyes were closed, praying. When he opened them and saw Amir, he didn't look afraid. He smiled gently, as if he had been expecting him. "Why are you here?" Daniel asked softly. Amir's voice shook. "I don't know. I saw what happened. I can't forget it. Who is this Jesus who saved you? Why did he break the rope? Daniel looked at him with eyes full of peace. He didn't just break the rope, Amir. He breaks the chains that no one can see, the chains inside the heart. Amir sat down, confused but drawn in. Teach me, he whispered. Daniel nodded. Then listen, and you will see more than you saw today. As they sat by the stream, the sun rose behind them, painting the sky gold and red. Two men, once enemies, now sat side by side, while heaven watched in silence. But far away, in the village they left behind, the leader in black was gathering the others. His anger had turned to fear, and fear to fury. He shouted, "We will find them. That man's God humiliated us." The desert was about to witness another storm, one darker than before. The desert was quiet again, but not for long. In the village, the leader in black, his name was Karim, could not sleep. The miracle haunted him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Daniel alive when he should have been dead. He slammed his fist on the table. It was a trick. It must be, he shouted. But deep inside, he was afraid. He remembered how the air had changed, how the rope had snapped like it was made of dust. Gather the men, he ordered. We'll hunt him down. We'll show the people that no man can mock us alive. By dawn, 6 men followed Karim into the desert. They carried ropes, swords, and torches. The sun rose behind them like fire. Meanwhile, far away, Daniel and Amir were walking beside the stream, talking quietly. Daniel spoke with peace in his voice. Amir, Jesus didn't come to fight people. He came to save them. Even the ones who hurt us. Amir frowned. Even Karim, the man who wanted you dead. Daniel nodded slowly. Even him. Amir didn't understand, but his heart was learning something new, mercy. They stopped to rest under a rock's shadow. The wind grew cooler. Birds flew across the sky. Everything seemed calm. But far behind them, Karim's group was getting closer. The footprints in the sand led them straight toward Daniel and Amir. By afternoon, the sky began to darken. Strange clouds formed, thick, heavy, and swirling. The air smelled like rain, though no rain had fallen there in months. Karim raised his torch and shouted, "They are close. Move faster." Suddenly, a strong wind hit them. The torches blew out. The camels cried and refused to move. Sand began to spin around them in circles, a sandstorm rising from nowhere. The men tried to cover their faces, but the wind grew louder, like 1,000 voices whispering one name, Jesus, Jesus. Karim fell to his knees, fighting the storm. "What is this?" he shouted. Far ahead, Daniel and Amir saw the sky turn dark behind them. Daniel's eyes widened, but not with fear. He whispered, "He's fighting for us." Amir trembled. "What's happening?" Daniel placed a hand on his shoulder. When heaven wants to protect, even the desert obeys. The storm grew so fierce that Karim's men could not see each other. The sand stung their eyes, the wind howled like thunder. Their ropes and swords were ripped away. One by one, they fell to the ground, crying out for help. Karim shouted, "Stop this storm." But no one heard him. Then, through the roaring wind, he heard a voice, calm and powerful. "You fight against my servants. Why do you do this?" Karim froze. His heart shook. He looked up but saw only light. He fell on his face, crying, "Who are you?" The voice answered, "I am the one whose rope you tried to tighten." The storm stopped. Silence covered the desert. Karim's men lay on the sand, trembling. When the dust cleared, Daniel and Amir were gone, led away safely by the wind itself. Only the sound of water remained, flowing softly somewhere nearby. Karim knelt in the dust, tears mixing with sand. For the first time in his life, his pride broke. He whispered, "Forgive me." And though no one stood near him, he felt warmth, gentle, holy, wrapping around him like light. When the storm ended, the desert lay silent like a sleeping sea. The wind was gone, and only the soft whisper of sand moving in small waves could be heard. Karim sat in the dust, weak and trembling. His men were scattered around him, frightened and silent. The sky, once dark and angry, was now painted in soft colors of gold and purple. It was as if heaven itself had smiled after showing its power. Karim looked at his hands. They were shaking. The rope he once carried to kill Daniel was gone, blown away by the storm. But something else was missing too, the hate inside him. It had melted like ice in the sun. He whispered to himself, that voice, that light, it was real. For a long time, he sat quietly, staring at the empty horizon. His heart felt heavy, yet strangely at peace. One of his men crawled closer and said, "Kareem, we must go back." But Kareem shook his head slowly. "No, I must find that man. I must find Daniel." His men were afraid, but he serves the God who sent the storm. Kareem closed his eyes. "Yes," he said softly. "And that same God spared my life." The next morning, when the sun rose, Kareem began to walk alone. He left his men behind. He didn't carry a sword or rope anymore, only a piece of cloth around his shoulders and a small water skin. The desert was wide and endless, but he walked as if he was being led by something greater than his eyes. Days passed. The heat burned his skin, and hunger made him weak. But each night, when he lay under the stars, he remembered the voice that had spoken during the storm. "Why do you fight against my servants?" That voice was not angry, it was sad, full of mercy. Kareem had never known such a sound. On the third day, he saw a small figure ahead, sitting near the same stream where Daniel and Amir had rested before. As Kareem came closer, his heart beat faster. Daniel was there, the man he had tried to kill. Amir sat beside him, reading from a small piece of paper with words written in his language. When they saw Kareem, Amir jumped up, ready to defend himself. "Daniel, it's him." But Daniel stood calmly, his eyes gentle. "I know," he said softly. Kareem stopped a few steps away and fell to his knees. "I came not to fight, but to ask for forgiveness." Amir was shocked. "Forgiveness? After what you did?" Daniel stepped forward, lifted Kareem up, and said, "Jesus already forgave you, my brother. And so do I." Kareem began to cry. Not loud, but deep, like his soul was being washed clean. "Why, I don't deserve it." Daniel smiled. "None of us do. That's why it's called grace." They sat together by the water. Daniel told him about Jesus, the one who loves even his enemies, who died but rose again, and who still saves today. As the sun set, Kareem closed his eyes and whispered, "Jesus, if you are real, live in me." And in that moment, peace filled his heart like cool rain in dry soil. The same desert that had seen hate and death now witnessed forgiveness and new life. The three men, Daniel, Amir, and Kareem, prayed together under the stars. The desert wind blew softly, like heaven's breath saying, "This is my power, not in death, but in love." The next morning, the desert felt different. The air was soft and cool, the sky painted blue and clean. Daniel, Amir, and Kareem sat together under the same tree where it had all begun. None of them spoke for a while, they just listened to the wind whispering through the sand. Kareem looked up and said quietly, "I used to come to this desert to bring death. Now, I come to find life." Daniel smiled. "That is what Jesus does. He turns deserts into gardens." Amir looked into the distance. "But what about the village? They still think you are dead, and they still hate us." Daniel nodded slowly. "That is why we must go back." Amir's eyes widened. "Go back to them?" "Yes," Daniel said firmly. "Because the same people who saw the rope break must now see the truth, not of fear, but of love." Kareem stood up, his face full of new courage. "Then I will go with you. I will tell them what I saw." And so they began to walk back, across the same sands that once carried hate and death. Now, those sands carried three men changed forever. When they reached the village, people came running, shocked to see Daniel alive and Kareem beside him. Whispers filled the air. "Is that the man who broke the rope? Why is Kareem with him? Is this a trick?" Daniel raised his hand and spoke gently, "I was dead in your eyes, but Jesus gave me life. The same Jesus can give life to this whole land." Kareem stepped forward and said loudly, "I saw it. The rope broke before my eyes. The storm obeyed his voice. I was blind, but now I see." The people stood frozen. Then, an old woman from the crowd cried out, "If your Jesus is real, let him heal my son, he has been blind since birth." The boy was brought forward. His eyes were pale and empty. The crowd watched silently. Daniel knelt before the child and whispered, "Jesus, show them that you are alive." He placed his hands gently over the boy's eyes and prayed, Lord, open what has been closed. Let your light shine. A breeze passed through the village, soft and cool, though the sun was hot. Then, slowly, the boy blinked. He blinked again. His eyes, once gray and lifeless, now shone like the morning sky. He looked around, seeing for the first time. I can see. The boy shouted. Mama, I can see. The people gasped. Some fell to their knees. Others wept openly. The mother screamed with joy and hugged her son tightly. Kareem lifted his hands, tears streaming down his face. You see, his power is real. The whole village began to shout, not in fear this time, but in praise. The same desert that had once echoed with violence now echoed with worship. By sunset, many believed. They built a small cross in the middle of the village, made from 2 old pieces of wood. Under it, Daniel, Amir, and Kareem prayed together. Daniel looked at the horizon and said softly, "It began with a rope meant to kill, but Jesus used it to bring life." Amir smiled. "And he turned enemies into brothers." Kareem nodded. "And a desert into a place of miracles." As the sun disappeared behind the dunes, a golden light filled the sky, brighter than any before. The villagers watched in awe as the clouds formed the shape of a great cross glowing above them. It stayed for a moment, then slowly faded, but the peace it brought never left. From that day, people in that village spoke of one truth. In the desert of Sudan, Jesus broke the rope, and the darkness too. Summary: in the deserts of Sudan, a Christian named Daniel was tied with ropes and ready to die. But as his killers pulled the rope, it snapped by itself, a miracle from Jesus. One of the men, Amir, followed Daniel to learn the truth, and their leader Kareem later saw God's power in a storm. Daniel forgave them both, and together they returned to the village, where Jesus healed a blind boy. The whole village believed, and a glowing cross appeared in the sky, proving that no rope can kill true faith. Moral lesson: true faith cannot be destroyed. Jesus turns hate into love, enemies into brothers, and every desert into a place of miracles. The end.